are talking with Oksana Vovchenko today about how to make right decisions. Hello.
Yes, hello.
So, what is right and what is wrong? Who is the judge?
Yes, that's the very question. Actually, that was not me who was the author of this topic. Where I got it, I conducted trainings for different managers, and one of the most frequent questions from them was how to make right decisions. I would not formulate like that because who may say what is right decision, but rather better to say better decisions or less worse decisions, or I would even say how to make strategically relevant decisions. Living in the world of uncertainty and incomplete information.
There is a phrase in English, it's all in the eyes of the beholder. So it's always depends on of the point of view, and the scale, the it's very
yes, sure. It's very subjective, right decision. But let's
well. Obviously, there are like if the driver makes a mistake and kills the person, it's not very subjective to decide that if the person is driving like over the speed limit, we can definitely say that it was a wrong decision, right? And in terms of legal consequences and moral consequences and physical consequences that led to the accident, it was a wrong decision.
Yes, but let's consider different aspects of decision-making process in order to generate some list of tips for our viewers how to make more relevant decisions.
Okay.
What would you suggest first?
Well, first, we need to decide in which relative pattern you would like to measure the result, and exactly to set up the targets, because without that we cannot judge. Like the example that I've brought to your attention, speeding up, if there was no accident, or the accident could have happened even if the speed would be the same, then it's not that obvious, because, for example, if we look at our highways, the main flow always moves above the speed limit. It's about 110, while the limit is in almost places is 100 kilometers per hour. And some are used to drive with 130, and they get away with this for quite a while. And according to their decision-making process, this is the correct decision. And even if the accident would happen, they might argue that, well, it would be inevitable. You can get into the accident even if you move according to the speed limit. And even they might say, if you move according to the speed limit, you're more prone to the accident, because everybody else are moving with the flow. And if you are abruptly shows up in front of the vehicle that wouldn't expect you to move 20 kilometers less than everybody else, you can actually cause this accident. That's the problem of deciding what is right and what is wrong, and that's one of the problems why people do not admit their mistakes, and they repeat their mistakes numerous times. And that's why people can justify any atrocities, any crimes, or there is no absolute evil, not absolute wrong, because any wrong or any evil can be justified. And on one hand, it's an advantage of our mind that allows us to justify things that we see as beneficial to us. And the bad thing, on other hand, is that we virtually can justify anything. And then the justification is worthless. And explanation what is right and wrong and definitions of right and wrong would be, again, useless. People who made wrong decisions and they resulted in disaster will argue that disaster would come anyways, and their decisions didn't cause them, but were set to prevent it. Or they have not been given a chance. Like the last prime minister that resigned in Great Britain, she didn't even have the chance to go ahead with her proposed reforms. She was forced to resign only when she started to produce those propositions, right? And if you would be talking to her, she would say, they didn't let me go through with this, and that's the problem. So in order to give any valuable advice or express any valuable thought, we need to decide why would we need this discussion at all? Because we know that the right decisions can be later on deemed as bad decisions. The prosperity and development can be deemed as bad thing. For example, building the bridge in Crimea. This is a technological and technical achievement. It has connected to regions that has been separated by this strait for almost forever. The previous attempts to build this bridge were not successful. The bridge is an efficient way of the communication between and infrastructure. But if we look at this from political point of view, this is the instrument of the aggression to build such infrastructure that allows better protect the occupied territories that has been separated from the country unlawfully. So the same thing, this very same action, building the bridge, can be deemed as a right decision in terms of infrastructure, better well-being of the inhabitants that live in Crimea and the development of the region. But on the other hand, the very same decision is deemed as a crime, as an instrument to perpetuate this crime and make it more efficient and more permanent. And therefore, Ukrainians see it as legitimate target, even though from the human perspective, it's a very nice thing to build bridges, because bridges is good, right? Bridges are good, right? So here is the example that, for example, if the engineer made a good decision and was successful, was that the right decision? Was that the right decision to participate in such project? You see?
Yes, I understand, but I would concentrate rather on the decision maker from his point of view, because if we bring in all the points of view, we'll get a variety of opinions. But why people ask this question about right decision? Just because they feel unhappy of some action did
It's
before.
always cheaper to convince yourself or even convince everybody around that bad decision was not bad decision.
Yeah, and thank you very much for bringing in this issue that the first step is mistake recognition. If you really recognize some action as a mistaken one, or you just try to justify any action you've done.
But on other hand, sometimes if you admit the mistake, you will not be given the second chance. The same what happens, I don't really want to get political, but the same what happens with this conflict that we're all witnessing. They don't want to admit their mistake because they fear that they will not get the second chance to win, right? If they say it was a mistake, so just get out and shut up, right?
Some mistakes could be fatal for us. There will be no any other chance.
Yeah, I'm a bad person today because I'm not letting you to get to the point. It's obvious that there are bad decisions and there are good decisions, and this relativistic approach is not helping. I understand that, but we should have set this preamble in order to see the perspective, to be very cautious. Before you decide to do something, before you decide to undo something, you need to sit back and look at it from different perspectives and see whether your perspective is really a good point of view. But if we get technical, yes, there is a process which allows us to set the target. It's very bad to start things without clear target. We need to voice this target, to visualize it, to put it on paper, maybe. Then we need to set on the endpoints that will show whether we are reaching the target or not. And then we need to plan. We need to plan how do we think we can reach those endpoints. We need to allocate resources. I don't like investment because, like I always say, that investment always, for me, is losing the money in the most painful way. With such a turbulent world, long-term or big investments, they are very dangerous. And money can find a better use. But even for the smallest efforts or smallest initiatives, there should be some resources. Like, you can't do anything without nothing. So you need to allocate those resources. And then, very important to try to do the experiments on a smaller scale. That's very important. And people often skip this, or they do make experiment on a smaller scale, but they make systemic mistakes. Then transferring this experience to a bigger scale that might not work, or to different environment. But still, small experiment is good if it is possible at all. And many skip this small experiment part. If you want to do the business, try to do the business without much investment. Position yourself as a middleman or whatever. Just get involved in sales process, outsourcing process. Just try yourself and your methods and your theories, whether they will work or not. And only then, when it is successful, again, it's not a guarantee that it will be successful, but it is not successful. Of course, it can be also not a proof that it will not be successful on a bigger scale, but it's a very good reason not to try if it is not successful on a smaller scale. If it's successful on a smaller scale, it's better to bring it to bigger scale, not to the whole capacity, but still to try it in smaller steps. This example we can show in different processes, experiments with pharmaceutical industry, clinical research, political things like communism, for example. The only place where the communism succeeded was in Israel, in kibbutz movement, where until now there are settlements with very successful communities that are living in a communist system. But that's what I always said. Those who made revolutions, why didn't you just pick up a small population of your supporters, go somewhere, settle, and try all those things like collectivization, like NAP, like everything within those limited numbers of people to see at least how it works. Again, it wouldn't be a guarantee that it would work on a larger scale, but at least if it doesn't work on such a small scale, it probably will not work on a bigger scale either.
So here we've got the first tip. Try and experiment before scaling.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what I'm doing. Like I'm starting a new product or service. I'm not trying to push it to all my leads. I'm checking it out on a certain number of leads, and I already see what's the problem with it. It's either too expensive, or I just overrated it. Its attractiveness. In theory, it was supposed to be successful, but it is not, and so on and so on. So very much important to do testing. Yeah.
Yeah, sounds great. And now I would like dive deeper into philosophy from my side and discuss the issue of uncertainty, predictability, unpredictability, and here we will come to such issues like determinism or stochastic approach. First, I would ask you, which school are you for? Do you believe in determinism or more rely on probabilities?
Of course, on probabilities. I think the world is built on probabilities, and on a very basic scale, like quantum physics.
So from here, we can postulate that perfect decisions are not possible, actually.
Absolutely.
None of decision will be perfect.
No, the world is not perfect.
So we have to act in the situation of where we have incomplete information, and our decision will not be assisted with the full information and will be imperfect at the very beginning.
We always do.
What would you suggest?
Attempts. Anyone who is
to improve decision-making process, knowing that best decisions are not possible at all.
Again, it's important to have many opportunities for the additional attempts. Look at Elon Musk. He likes to tell the story that there was a last test of his rockets, that if that rocket would blow up, he would be completely broke and the whole thing would be out of question, but it succeeded. So it was a probability that it would succeed or not. If he wouldn't have these repeated opportunities, then he wouldn't be able to achieve. So we all know this rule. It's called Pareto rule, yeah, that only a small portion of the efforts is given up to 80% of the successful outcome, while most of the efforts are going without success. But the thing is that if you leave only those that are successful, then the same rule will apply to the residual. So anyone who is doing business would confirm that only about 1 or 2 decisions out of 10 are actually good ones. And the success is not making good decisions all the time, but in persistence. Persistence and ability to keep processes on low key. Again, example, Elon Musk, when he was desperately looking for solutions, either for his electric cars, the batteries were very expensive. Or for the rockets, he was trying to buy the rockets from Russians. He was always looking for the cheaper decisions to make it more sustainable. He sat and decided that, okay, the battery, what is battery made of? Maybe we can make these batteries ourselves. Or his genius decision for the landing platforms in sea, that he's using the used oil drilling platforms, which are considerably, maybe tenfold cheaper than to produce any from scratch platform for the rocket to land. That's the examples how he's creating for himself more space for more opportunities, more attempts. The same ideas behind his multiple use parts of the rockets that can get back and reused. Because every time if he would have to produce them as it was before, he would probably not be able to make it sustainable, right? So it's just good examples because we all hear this news and they're very loud and clear. But the truth is that when we look at the successful businesses, and we as business consultants and coaches, we can see this, where they have set up, first of all, determination. I will do this no matter what. I'm ready to do this. If nobody buys my product, I will still make this product and offer this service. And I make it sustainable. So I can offer it for a long period of time without suffering significant losses that would make it prohibitive. So the determination is very important. And experimenting on a low scale, as we said. So those factors would work towards better chances, better probability of the success, right? And especially in the lack of the full information, inherently, philosophically, physically, we cannot possess full information. We have the principle of uncertainty of Heisenberg, which doesn't allow us to possess full information about the elementary particle. The same thing is not trying to chase this full control and full information. Sometimes having the information doesn't allow us to analyze this information in an efficient way that would give us the ability to make conclusions that would lead to better results. Sometimes information is not very useful to us because we don't have an efficient method to predict how things will work. Of course, in technical processes, it is easier because you control those processes. But even in these processes, my brother, for example, is the process engineer. For tens of years, he's dealing with technologies where he is in a very well-controlled environment, working with the microchips, right? But still, they have a lot of problems when they set up the new technology or transfer the technology, even the one that has been successful elsewhere. Sometimes it takes years to transfer it and use at the new place. So if it's the matter, that's the matter with technical things where you deem to be in full control of all the factors. You create those factors by yourself, and you control them, and you can test them. Needless to say that it's way more complicated to achieve success when most of the factors are unknown to you and unpredictable in terms of what's coming next, right?
Yes, interesting. For me, that sounded as if you reframed the problem from how to make right decision into make your decision right. So one failed attempt is not enough to give up. Just continue trying again and again. Persist in
Someone say in English,
your goals. But here again, we face ambiguity. When shall we stop? Let's consider this situation with Putin's invasion of Ukraine. From my point of view, it was a mistake, but he continues to persist, like trying to make his decision right.
In English, we say, fake it until you make it. So he probably is trying to do the same thing, right? Again, here we're dealing with
where is the limit or border to continue persist the goal? Maybe there's some moment when you just
the problem with this example, if we would be listening better to what he used to say a couple of years ago, we would understand him better. He is fanatical, and he will not stop ever. Only death can stop him. He has his. He's not the rational politician anymore. When he said, "Who needs the world without Russia?" When he said that we will go to heaven and you will just die like nothing, all those phrases are not phrases of the politician. They are phrases of the fanatical sect leader that will pursue his illusions until the very end. And that's what is most dangerous and most problematic about this situation. He is no different from Hitler or any other fanatical leaders that do not take into account the cost of achieving their delusional goals. All right? And that's why we cannot talk about decision-making process based on that. This person is irrelevant. He is not a decision maker. He is just fanatical freak.
Well, agree. Let's return to those who we call rational individuals, or at least thinking individuals.
And the problem with him that you cannot be rational with him because he is not rational. Like the rational thing is to go and make peace. But with such irrational enemy, everybody understands that this peace will just give him more opportunity to make even bigger war. And that's the reason why everybody is acting irrational as well, only because he is making everybody to act irrational. Of course, making the peace is the most rational outcome at any moment to stop people from dying. But here, we all need to count that other factors will stop him from repeating his attempts. And we understand that not having this pressure as he has now, we will not be able to at least try to stop him from repeating those things. And that's why nobody can say what is better in this situation. The situation cannot be better or worse because it is led by not adequate player, but by fanatical, delusional individual. And not only individual, his propaganda has made most of the followers in the same way. And that's why, for example, when we watch those interviews with the supporters, recently there was an interview with one guy with Zdujom. He was contradicting himself every 5 minutes. And contradicting yourself while being fanatical is okay. It doesn't matter.
Yes.
Yeah. We are talking about the rational decision-making processes. And in rational decision-making processes,
It's the
illusions and
process of
delusions.
reasoning and balancing between choices and making choices. And let's talk of other philosophic concept.
Before that, I would like to answer your question. When to stop? When you feel like that. The motivation is the key. If you are the decision maker or the group of your supporters or partners, decision makers, if they feel like stopping and even there are still chances to succeed, it's better to stop. And vice versa. If you do not feel like stopping and there are almost no chances to succeed, like an example with Columbus, when they were suffering tremendous shortness of food and drinking water, when they were traveling for the first time to the new continent, thinking that they're going to India. He asked his followers to give him another 3 days, and he reached the land. And that's the example when all odds were against him. The team was begging to turn back. And by the way, it's quite possible if they would turn back, they would all die because the resources were depleted. They didn't count for such a long journey. But his decision was the right decision, to continue and then to get to the to his target, right? Winston Churchill used to say, if you go through hell, just keep moving. Don't turn back, don't stop, just keep moving. Another example, one of my friends, his girlfriend was a little bit cuckoo, and they came to visit me in Norway, and they drove to the waterfalls. And this cuckoo girlfriend decided to cross the waterfall, jumping from stone to stone. And then she got stuck. He jumped to rescue her. And he saw that if they're going to get back, they might both die. And they just had to keep moving. And he rescued her, he rescued himself. He had to drink the half bottle of vodka after that. He was all shaken, but the decision was right, just to keep moving. even though it was so scary and frightful. Yeah. So that's the answer, whether to stop or not. It's about motivation. If you still have the motivation, if you still have a drive, and even you don't have the resources, keep moving, keep moving. If you
Yeah,
don't,
for me, it sounds very persuasive. Yes, right. If you have energy to continue,
it's also the
continue. If
intuition.
you
It's
have no
also the
interest.
also you use your intuition, gut feeling. Gut feeling. That's the feeling within your belly. Gut feeling, right? Sometimes it helps a lot. Our intuition is a very mysterious way of analyzing the things in a lack of information, or skipping the processes of the analysis, getting right to the decision. So of course we need to use our intuition. If we feel it's right and we need to go on, we need to go on. Or even if we still might go on, it's better to stop when you lose this motivation, or your intuition tells you not to continue.
Being a woman, I also rely a lot of my intuition. But let's bridge from here to this philosophy concept of free will. Free will and consciousness or unconscious decisions. Are we really decision makers? What I would like to ask you about. Can we consider ourselves as a real decision makers?
We always are. It obvious, like we can philosophize that we can't do anything and everything is predestined and predetermined, but obviously we feel like we can do things differently. We feel that we have control on some things. I feel like I can take this single-use plastic glass in my hand, and I can. So my prediction was correct. I thought that I can, and that was the proof for me of my free will. 1,000 things could have happened that would prevent me from doing it. But obviously I can do this. And it doesn't matter whether the impulse in my brain got to my consciousness after I already have made this action. It's not relevant. It doesn't matter. We obviously can make decisions. Limited ability to predict their outcome, limited ability to make those decisions, really make them, but some freedom we do have.
Mm-hmm. And let's consider the situation when we have to make our decision very fast in situation of emergency. Let's say I'm a driver and I drive with a speed limit. I'm very accurate driver, but something unpredictable happens on the road and I have to make decision less than in 1 second.
It's a very dangerous situation indeed.
Yeah.
If
I still the decision maker, or I just follow some instincts which are out of my control?
It depends, of course, but I cannot be boasting that I'm a good driver. I'm a bad driver. But because of I'm a bad driver, I almost have no accidents. I would always choose the way where I do not make the skittish, jumpy decisions. I would, even if it would be beneficial to make a maneuver and to avoid something, I realize that it might make the situation way worse. there might be factors that, due to emergency and urgency of the situation, I cannot take into account, and such maneuver might cause even worse tragedy. So I will stay in my lane, and I will try to slow down rather than changing the lanes and doing these things, probably. It
But I
can
also
cause
think
the
that-
accident. It can cause the accident, yeah. And maybe if someone would act swiftly, he probably would avoid accident. But in such a urgent situation, you cannot take all the factors into account. You cannot see everything, who is coming and what's not. And maybe the accident that you are trying to avoid would be less dangerous than the accident that you cannot predict, because you'll try to avoid and you will get the car that wouldn't see you, and it would be tremendously more dangerous. At least I don't rely on my ability to make swift decisions. I don't trust that I'm a good driver, and maybe that's why I am actually a good driver.
Yes, and I still think that even in this case, we can improve ourselves as a better decision makers, having training beforehand. If we consider a lot of templates in advance and think which decision could be better, just train and train and train, as for example, as for fire alarm. We may have training for a fire alarm, how to act. So at the very moment of the event, it will be easier for me to make a correct decision. I would not say right decision, but correct, correct decision or relevant.
Absolutely. I used to work in medical services, and you are getting trained for rescue, resuscitation, and other things. Of course, training is an important part of it. Yeah.
And I think there is one very important thing which we should talk today about is a collective decision making, because we not make decisions just by ourselves. We also make a collective decision, being a social creature, group decisions. And here we come to consensus or decision by the majority or other types of decisions.
I would use this only to check the motivation of people that are on board. And if they show no motivation, then I would support the decision of the majority, because I know forcing others to do something they don't believe in will fail for sure. But in terms of decision making in my business, I don't like the usually I consider others idiots, and they are in so many ways, especially towards my business. They don't understand, they don't feel things, and I definitely don't want to listen to anybody's opinion what to do and what not to do. So many times they were wrong about their predictions. All my successful businesses started and succeeded despite advices from others. And if I even have to have a partner, I would definitely be the leader. And if the partner doesn't like it, so I try to avoid, again, taking investments from others, so they don't manage me and influence my decisions. So
Yes, I agree. That's really very important to check the motivation and the commitment of those who are involved in decision making. If we shall come to consensus or just continue to do what we decide to do. But if we talk about political decisions, I think that we rather come to consensus because different groups of decision makers are really motivated to be engaged, to be included in decision-making process and protect their rights or interest.
Yeah,
And-
but it doesn't work that
And
way.
here
It never works that way.
we will come
Even
to
in small
contradictions.
democratic systems, very small, like township or school board, or like even your family, if you will try to make the democratic decisions in your family, even it doesn't work. A lot of times, collective decisions are bad. A lot of times they are bad for everybody who have taken them. We have discussed on this channel, I don't remember what's the name of this phenomenon, when everybody think that others want it, so they vote for that, but it turns out that no one actually wants it. And in many cases it really doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. And mostly it is used to put blame on voters, even though they have no influence on anything. Just one way of manipulating the public opinion. For example, so many examples with COVID, right? Many of us said, what you do with COVID is wrong. You're trying to contain this disease by disallowing people to attend regular medical help. You will lose more people. It will be more deaths in total. Now they released the numbers, and the World Health Organization confirmed there were 15 million excessive deaths, which means they checked the pre-COVID number of deaths and during COVID deaths. There was excessive 15 million, while directly caused by COVID, there were only 6 million, which means that all those policies has cost 9 million deaths, more than actually COVID caused. All right. And very big question whether they will just learn something from that and will not repeat their mistakes. Right? Because and another thing is that we all who at least understand a little bit in medical sciences, we all said that you will not be able to contain this kind of virus, with vaccination. It's only temporary success, because it will evolve and you will never create universal vaccines that will work against ever-evolving viruses. And that's the reason why we have other diseases, some of them, that vaccinations are not very, very effective with them. And we cannot just all of a sudden discover America and say, oh, we will change that. Of course, they didn't change that. Australia, who enclosed the whole continent and had very few cases, when they opened, they got the same number of cases as in the United States. So yes, less deaths, because this variant is less deadly right now. But the fact that those who had COVID didn't get the appropriate treatment because they were isolated. And others could not use the medical system to attend their problems during this, plus suicidal rates, plus depression, plus poverty, plus everything else actually has made the outcome that has been easily predicted back then when there was a public discussion what to do and what not to do. And as we can see, the better decision would be to let people to decide what to do and what not to do, to wear masks, not to wear masks, to have vaccination, not to have vaccination. It should have been offered, but the main decision makers should have been people and not such draconian ways of treating the population, which also have tremendous impact on the freedoms, on the different treatment of people by the governments and so many other outcomes. So
yeah, that's a nice example. Thank you for that. And what we may say that it's important not just to target our goals, but also consider externalities, the price for our decisions, just to look at them wider, just than only persuading the single goal. Always consider externalities, which may cost us a lot. But returning to group decision making, I do believe that it has its advantages when we make decision by group of experts, when we can unite our expertise in different areas, we can generate more complex decisions. Don't you think so?
no, because real experts, they know nothing, and they know that they know nothing. When I call a physics teacher here at this channel, he is very confident that he knows everything. But when I call for leading scientists in any area, they are not confident in anything in their area. All right. So experts are not good decision makers because they don't know things.
Yeah, by themselves, if they
And the good example is the legal process when they call experts from different sides and they give completely different opinions, right?
Yeah, but if you do that, make decisions solely, but if you contribute your knowledge to the group knowledge, to consider situation from different points of view, I think it might generate more interesting or creative decisions.
like research, asking the experts, of course it's beneficial. Knowledge is better than
And I also
lack of
think that the
knowledge.
groups must be
Even though
diverse.
sometimes lack of knowledge is better. I have this story that I like to tell about, as an example, that having the expert and the opinion and having better knowledge can be worse and deadly. Imagine two islands. One island is just wild people knowing nothing. Another one is educated people having experts. So they all see the same picture, the star in the sky. The wild people decided this is the lucky star, and they continue to celebrate and spend time very nicely, and everything was great. The knowledgeable nation finds out it's an asteroid, which is on course towards the Earth. And they have calculated that it will hit exactly where their island is, and they need to get rescued. So they built the ships and they abandoned their island. Asteroid goes by Earth and doesn't hit. But there is a very strong storm and they all die. So that's the example where the having knowledge was deadly and not having knowledge was better. So that's why I'm saying sometimes it's better not to know. And like we say in Russian, maybe in Ukrainian as well, if you know less, you sleep better, right?
Yes, very often we just rely on fortune.
Experts might help, but they also might not help.
Might help,
And
might not.
it's a good thing to develop the critical thinking by yourself and look at the things in their perspective. As I said, sit back and look from the distance on the things that you would like to achieve or make your decisions. Personal motives, motivation, different other things can influence how the expert would work. All right. So you never know. He might just don't like you. So he unconsciously might, subconsciously might give the advice, taking into account that he doesn't like you or like you a lot. And he might make the decision to give another expert. And especially this expertise, there are more precise scientist problems where it's more predictable. In those things like business or policy or anything else, it might be bad idea to listen too much to experts. To listen, to hear them, yes, but not necessarily follow whatever they say.
Yeah, so we are always balancing between science and art, life as a science and life as an art, predictable and unpredictable result. For me, that's somewhere in the middle, something you can plan and predict and even influence, and something goes behind your control.
Yeah. Precisely. Anything else that we need to discuss?
I have no more questions.
Excellent. Thank you so much for your input.
Thank you for your sincerity and answering in such frank manner. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.